Good afternoon and welcome to the SR 520 Portage Bay Bridge and Roanoke Lit Project's December monthly construction meeting. I appreciate you folks joining us on this frigid December afternoon to learn all about all the construction activities that we have planned for the rest of 2025 and looking ahead into early 2026 as well. My name is Alan Van. I'm the Public Information Manager for the Skanska team. I'll be kicking us off today before we dive into some exciting construction updates for you folks. Next slide, please. During today's meeting, you'll be hearing from myself and two of Skanska's community liaisons, Robin Clark and Rihanna Pittman. We also have a couple of folks from WashDOT and Skanska also on the call as well. You may be hearing from them throughout the presentation if any question is pertinent to them. To the box or on the box to your right, we have some information about today's meeting. We are scheduled to go until 1. We'll probably end before then, but we do have plenty of time in case we do have questions in our queue. Again, please submit your questions in the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. And then also take a moment to scan that QR code and sign up for our email updates where you'll hear the latest and greatest information on construction and traffic impacts for future work. Next slide, please. For today's meeting, we want to provide you with an update on what we have planned for the rest of December 2025, including some look ahead for our pile driving, some utility work updates, some information on our acoustic fencing installation or Acoustifence installation, and some information about tree removal. We'll also look ahead to the first part of 2026 with some exciting traffic changes that we have planned, and then we'll also quickly go over our holiday schedule and how to stay informed for the rest of the project. With that, I'll go ahead and pass it over to Robin and Ray to talk about construction. Thank you.
All righty. Thanks, Alan. I can tell when someone's not really from a northern area or not used to the winter because I haven't even broken out my winter jacket yet. It's frigid, but I do hope everyone's staying warm. Thanks everyone again for joining us this month. Looking forward to giving you guys this month's updates and looking forward to the holidays and a happy new year. So we'll start off as usual with our project benefits and a quick recap of where we're at in the overall project schedule. So for folks on the line, if you're not familiar with our project, we are replacing the existing SR 520 bridge, eastbound and westbound, with two new Portage Bay bridges, also going eastbound and westbound. As well as some new bike and pedestrian connections that will connect our North Capitol Hill neighborhoods to the Roanoke neighborhoods, as well as the Montlake neighborhoods across the bay. We have the extension crossing as well over the bay through SR 520 on that south side there. And we'll have the Roanoke lid that you see on the left-hand side of that graphic. That'll kind of bring it all together with those bike and pedestrian connections. And for our schedule updates, of course, we're towards the end of Q4 in 2025, getting towards the end of this year. Can't believe how fast it has flown, but we are in the midst of our new westbound bridge construction, still tracking along pretty well with that. We're going to get into some heavier activities next year that we'll discuss with you in upcoming meetings. We're also getting started with a lot of our Roanoke lid construction activities, which will also ramp up into next year. And we're in the middle of our in-water impact pile driving season 2, although we've taken a pause on our impact pile driving activities in particular, which Ray will talk about here in a moment. And with that, I'll pass it over to Ray to kick us off with some of our current construction activities.
Thanks, Robin. I'll review the current pile driving activities. Like Robin had briefly mentioned, we are currently done with pile driving for 2025, so you get a nice break for the holidays. We will resume our season 2 in water impact pile driving, which will continue early in 2026, and that will continue till April 30th in 2026, which will complete our season 2 in-water impact pile driving. We will have a small amount of piles over on the off-ramp towards Montlake Boulevard, which is where our temporary off-ramp will be. We'll be driving some piles as early as January 3rd. These will be 10 smaller piles, about a foot in diameter, much smaller than the piles that we've been doing, and we'll be vibing those in with impact on standby if we need to, depending on the field conditions. Like I mentioned, early next year, we'll continue our work trestle pile impact pile driving with about 20 piles near Boyer Avenue East, which this will be roughly between the Portage Bay condominiums and the Queen City Yacht Club underneath the current existing Portage Bay Bridge, around that area. And we have roughly installed about 33% of our total piles for season 2. Next slide, please. This shows a map of our intended pile driving areas for season 2. We have now completed some of the orange shaded in that you might have seen in earlier monthly construction meetings. The purple shaded areas indicate where we intend to be pile driving for the remainder of season 2. Like I mentioned, we have some scheduled smaller pile driving activities located near the current off-ramp for Montlake Boulevard, shaded here on the eastern side of the map. So this will be between January 3rd and 4th in the new year. Next slide, please. And just as a reminder of the different types of pile driving activities we perform, we have vibratory and impact pile driving, and we're currently in the in-water impact pile driving season. Next slide, please. And with that, I'm going to pass it back to Robin.
Alrighty, thanks, Ray. So I'll talk a little bit into some of our other ongoing construction activities here, starting off with some of our utility work. So what we've been working on recently is a King County Metro utility relocation. If folks have been driving over near the East Roanoke Street area, you may have seen crews working in and around the park or the fire station there between Harvard and 10th primarily. So we've had a bit of traffic control and operations going in during the day and sometimes during the night. So we've completed most of our work over there for the time being and for the rest of this year particularly. But we'll have a little bit more utility work to get into next year. So for the King County Metro utility installation, our work, we've relocated some of that work underground. King County Metro is following on with their relocation efforts. The next portion of that work is going to be other utility relocations that we've discussed at some of our past monthly construction meetings. We've also developed some folios in the past that are on our construction corner, and we'll be continuing to update as we get into the new year with you guys through these monthly construction meetings and through those folios. So that'll get more detailed as we get into the new year, and that'll be located on the right-hand orange box that you see on the map there. Primarily on the north side of SR 520. So really just want to emphasize that we do have some more utility work coming up through the new year, but we'll have more updates for you in January on what that looks like. Another thing I want to touch on here is our Acoustafence installation. Acoustafence, for folks who are not familiar, is a fairly tall fence that is installed on certain locations in the project that are particularly close to neighbors adjacent to our construction operations, where we can install fence panels and then a fabric on the outside of the fence panels that helps to reduce noise between our construction efforts and community members and neighbors that live nearby. So what you see in the photo here is our construction progress on some of the Acoustafence that we have started over on the east side of our project at the 2575 West Montlake Place East property, right next to the off-ramp from SR 520 to Montlake Boulevard. So crews are continuing to get that installed and should have that wrapped up close to the end of this year. And then we'll talk about the next location here in a moment, but they'll be sequentially installing that throughout the rest of this year and into next year. And again, we're just trying to get that installed so that we can have added noise protection for folks in the community from our construction efforts, especially as activities get busier next year. So here's kind of a map of those locations. If you take a look to the east side of that map, you'll see the work that's in progress for that West Montlake Place East area. That property, we're installing the fence panels right now, and the fabric that goes drapes on the outside of the fence will be installed shortly thereafter. Once we're done with that installation, we will be moving over to the west side of the project on the north side of SR 520, where you see that laser pointer right there on East Roanoke Street, and we'll be working on that installation near the Roanoke Park area. This has been a pretty big priority for us to get these two areas installed because they're pretty close to neighbors and our interface with construction activities. But I do want to note that some of the work on the west side of the project, we had to do a little bit of investigation for some potential conflicts with the Acoustafence location and our utility work in our work zone before we installed it, so that we didn't have essentially installing the Acoustafence and then having to remove it in order to excavate for the utilities without having to block sidewalks. So there was a little bit to work through before we could get to that installation, but we do anticipate getting started on that potentially this year, but the bulk of the work will happen within the first few weeks of the new year. So we're looking forward to getting going on that and getting that prioritized. The Acoustafence on the south side of SR 520 is going to roll shortly thereafter. The reason we haven't bumped this up ahead of the other Acoustafence installation, particularly over by that East Miller and Federal Avenue side, is because we still have trees kind of acting as that noise buffer in those areas for construction. So as we get into those areas with heavier construction activities and begin to remove select vegetation, we'll sequentially install Acoustafence with that work. So we'll continue to keep you guys updated on those dates as we get into those areas. Speaking of select tree and vegetation removal, so here is our map that we typically show in this meeting of where we're looking to remove trees and vegetation throughout the project. On the east side of the project, we have removed the bulk of our trees and vegetation that we expect to remove for this project. We do have a little bit more to do in that area in orange, but the most of it has been removed for what work we need to do for our project. On the west side, we are currently in those areas in green. We have one or two trees we are looking to remove this year to wrap us up for vegetation removal this year. But the bulk of our remaining vegetation removal will happen throughout next year, particularly in the remaining areas in orange on the west side of our project. One thing I do want to note is that we are kind of spreading out our vegetation removal throughout next year to make sure that we're not removing anything just too far ahead of our construction. We're trying to sequence it so that we remove it and then we're getting in there with our work, kind of tying that into our noise, but also into our sediment and erosion control so that we don't have any potential environmental issues, as well as the noise control measures that we're working to maintain for our project. All right. And with that, I will pass it back over to Ray to talk a little bit about our future construction and traffic impacts going into next year.
Thanks, Robin. So, as I'd mentioned before, with some of the piles that we've driven in the past, we are preparing to build our temporary off ramp to shift traffic from the current off ramp to Montlake Boulevard. So, I'll review that upcoming. So, we're building a temporary off ramp from eastbound 520 to Montlake Boulevard. We've added the concrete barriers for the we've temporary concrete barriers for the existing off ramp, and then in 2026 in January we'll be installing the 10 piles to kind of support this, uh, finish up this foundation for the temporary off ramp. Next slide. So to do this, we're going to reroute traffic to the new temporary off ramp once that is complete, and this will be in early 2026. And then we'll close the existing off ramp and shift traffic. I just want to bring your attention to something on the image that shows the traffic shift. You will have to make the exit a little bit earlier than we're used to in this area, so it's something to be aware of. There's a lot of crisscrossing traffic as you enter onto the current Portage Bay Bridge if you're coming from either north or southbound I-5. So just preparing ahead mentally that you're going to have to make that change a little bit earlier than the current off ramp. Next slide, please. So one of the other things that we've been working on in the project is our haul road connections to our current work trestle. We're currently building the haul road that will connect East Roanoke Street to the south corner of the work trestle. This was included in the work of the demoing of the property there. It's currently being graded and paved and will be scheduled to be using the new haul road in early next year. We've been using our northeast corner of the work trestle, so you might see that increase in traffic in the area as we use the haul road. And just note that some of that, it looks like a new road to access 520 from for a new exit, but it is our current haul road. So we want to make sure that we're using that area safely and our crews are aware of any impacts to that area. Next slide, please. So the other access that we have to our work trestle will be from Boyer Avenue East. We're going to install the piles for this and work on the construction during season 2 in water impact pile driving. We're going to extend the trestle before we build the new haul road. And then, like I previously mentioned with the pile driving, we'll pick up the pile driving for this construction in early 2026. Next slide, please. One of the most important things to us here at Skanska is the safety of not only our crews, but also those around us and the pedestrians and those communities that we are impacting. So with that northeast access to our work trestle, while we have built this new haul road, we understand that it does look like access for the public. So we want to make sure that these entrances are clearly marked with signs and closure cones. We do have active construction fencing around our work areas and construction only access signs. So the orange cones will separate the entrance from the southbound Montlake Boulevard travel lanes onto the westbound on-ramp entrance. So be sure to look out for those when you're driving by. Then we're painting traffic lines to clearly mark the haul road entrance. And when we do have larger vehicles and heavy trucks for more active construction, we will have flaggers on site to direct those larger vehicles on and off the haul roads for the safety of the public. Next slide, please. So a couple of traffic impacts early, and we're looking early into next year. Like I mentioned, the January 3rd and 4th, we'll have that off ramp to Montlake Boulevard closed during the day from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. So we can drive the piles that will help with our temporary off ramp completion. For January 6th to January 8th, We're going to have the 10th Avenue East overpass closed between East Roanoke and East Miller, and it'll be closed nightly, so it'll reopen during the day. The closure begins at 10 p.m., and then our shift ends at 6 a.m. that following morning. And then from January 9th to the 12th, East Roanoke Street between Boylston and Harvard will be closed from 11 p.m. Friday to 5 a.m. on Monday. So plan accordingly for that area. It does get a little congested, but we hope to minimize the impacts as much as possible. Thanks. And I'll pass it back to Robin.
All right. Thanks, Ray. And before I pass it on to Alan for one more pass the hat, I'll touch on our holiday work schedule that we anticipate. So we'll be updating our schedule for the holidays. Crews will not be working, and frankly, none of our staff will be working on Christmas Day or New Year's Day. We will have people answering the hotline, though. If you guys do run into any emergency scenarios, please do reach out to us. We'll have some lighter crew scheduling around the holidays, though. So we don't expect any major noises or impacts, but we'll continue to keep frontline neighbors appraised if something comes up. We do still have some activities, though, so expect activities to continue through the holidays, just on the lighter side of what you would normally expect for our typical week to week. And with that, I will pass it over to Alan for wrapping us up for the remainder of the year.
Great. Thank you for walking us through the presentation, Robin and Ray. We did have a couple of questions queued up in the Q&A throughout the presentation that we will go over verbally. But before we do that, I do have a couple of quick slides that I want to go through before we go and respond to those. That will also give folks an opportunity to type out any additional questions that they may have. But as always, if any questions come up later after this meeting ends, feel free to give us a call at our hotline, which the number is listed right on your screen right here, 206-319-4520, or send us an email as well. Some other ways that we are keeping you folks informed, we will be posting a recording of this meeting on the Construction Corner website, which is sr520construction.com, and then also on the official WashDOT project webpage as well. Make sure you're signed up for email updates to learn about our January meetings or any of our meetings in 2026. And then, of course, continue attending these meetings so that you have an opportunity to speak with subject matter experts with any questions that you may have. Next slide, please. And then just as a reminder, please submit all your questions in the Q&A. And as folks are typing some things out, we'll go ahead and go in chronological order. So the first question that we have is regarding the acoustic fences. Will all the acoustic fences be removed after construction, or will any be retained for traffic noise after the project is complete?
Yeah, great question. So we will be removing them. To my knowledge, we'll be removing all of them after construction. And, around the time that we're installing some of those buffers around the limits of our project. So in those areas, we do have project landscaping, and Dakota, maybe I'll have you go to the project benefits towards the beginning of our presentation there. That kind of shows where we have some landscaping elements and some of our sidewalk tie-ins there. And you can see on the screen where we have a lot of just work to do where our project kind of ties into the community there. So the acoustic fence will be removed in order for us to do those installations, but we hope that those tree plantings will replace the acoustic fence as the new buffer once they grow in and mature.
Great. Thank you, Robin. The next question we have is regarding the Hall Road access on the southwest corner next to Boyer Ave. Will trucks be accessing the Hall Road in this area from north of Boyer or north of 520 or south of 520?
Ooh, and that's a good question. I believe they will have ability to access going both north and south on Boyer Avenue East. So going up towards Furman and south towards, uh, I think that's Eastland Street and some of the other areas down there. Um, we can double check on that, but I do believe they'll have both directional access coming off of Boyer Avenue East. However, we're going to be looking into some of our logistics of the haul route access egress and how trucks are coming in and out pretty heavily as we get into next year. And we'll share the details of how we plan to bring trucks in and out of all of these access points. That's been a discussion within our team so that we can share with you guys what to expect with truck access and egress, especially as folks are using those sidewalks, driving through those areas, because we want to make sure you guys know what to expect with our trucks coming in and out.
Great. Thank you, Robin. And then the last question is regarding the pile driving and the status of the pile driving for 2025 and the resuming in early 2026. What have we completed in 2025 um, and the current pause that we have?
Yeah. So I won't share any details about resident private details, but we did always plan to have a part one and a part two of our pile driving this season. The part one being some of our fingers for the work trestles, and then the part two to come back for some of the connection elements. So my understanding is that this was part of that phasing for coming back in the early new year to resume those pile driving elements. And yeah, you can see the season two remaining elements there. So we've sequenced in two different parts here with some of our other construction work that's kind of going on in these areas.
And when Robin mentions the fingers, some of the piles that we had installed are just north of 520 on the western side, closer to Queen City Yacht Club. So that work was completed earlier this year. But that brings us to all of the questions that are in the Q&A. With that, as a reminder, feel free to send us an email or give us a call on the hotline if any additional questions come up. You're also welcome to review a recording of today's meeting on the Construction Corner and the WashDOT Project webpage. That should be up before the end of the year. If you do want that sooner rather than later, feel free to email us and we can get those materials over to you. Otherwise, be on the lookout for any email updates through the rest of the West to be informed of our January 2026 meeting. But thank you, everybody, for a fantastic year of construction and outreach. And I will let you all have a couple minutes of your afternoon back. So thank you, everybody, for your time.
Thank you. Happy holidays.
Thank you.